Today on the Do Hard Things podcast, we're going to be talking about creating habits and routine, not resolutions. So, Kevin, what do you think about this?
Well, gosh, how many people have made resolutions and we're coming up on it?
Never.
Yeah. Well, you've never. You're the one person who's never made a
No.
resolution.
Because I can't keep them.
New Year's resolution. What is a New Year's resolution anyway?
Something you're going to break tomorrow?
It is something you're going to break. But I mean, okay, Jed, let's ask you.
Okay.
New Year, what does that mean? You're a wordsmith guy. When you think New Year's resolution?
Well, you got to break it down to resolve,
Mm-hmm.
which is where resolution comes from. You decide that you're going to do something, and nothing is going to move you from that until January the 10th. And then you're done.
So,
Usually.
yeah, I'm like, what's the difference between resolution? Like, a resolution is just like one of those things like, oh, I'm going to do this. Like, yeah, you're supposed to have resolve. But, I mean, really, like, if I want to get something done, it's going to be a goal. I got to have a goal.
Yeah, that makes better sense.
Do you ever
Well-
New Year's resolutions?
I want to read more.
Oh, well, it's,
Yeah, I want to read more. I love it.
but that could also
And
be a goal.
I don't make time for it. I've got to
Yeah.
make time to put other stuff down and read more.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it, honestly. I quit making them a long time ago and just started doing other things.
See, I still do. And maybe need to call them different things. I think where New Year's resolutions comes from is it's a dissatisfaction with the year you just completed.
Yes.
And I think it is you find yourself in a spot that maybe you don't like being in. And so then you just make this is where I think people mess it up and I've done this a million times. I'm not happy with where I've been this past year. So I'm making a New Year's resolution this year to lose 50 pounds. And that's what most people do. That is the amount of thought, because they will think, gosh, I put on 25 pounds this week. I mean, this year. I need to lose 50 pounds. So I'm resolving to lose 50 pounds.
I mean, I guess that's not unrealistic. You could lose 52 weeks, 1 pound a week. But, I mean, wow, you'd really have to break that one down.
Yeah, that's not an unrealistic goal, but I think people they're not stepping back, and that's, so we're going to talk about it today is, habits and routines and why is that different than resolutions. But I think people just, they don't put enough time in stepping back and counting the cost of, okay, what do I really need to change about myself? And what are some things I can put in place that are going to change the trajectory of these different areas of my life?
Yeah, I always think, like, how am I going to make that happen? Like, what's got to change in my life for that to actually happen?
Yeah. I mean, that's when you start talking about habits and routines and resolutions and all these different things, sometimes I think we just think those are all synonyms, and they're not necessarily.
No, not really. But, I keep thinking about, I posted something about the scariest place to be right now is the same place you were last year. And that just resonates with me. I mean, like, if nothing's changed in a year, nothing. I mean, of course, there are some things that haven't really changed because I haven't put a lot of effort on them. But, like, in general, I sure hope everybody feels like they've grown a little bit in the course of a year.
Yeah. And not only taking a year mindset, but I think sometimes it's good to look 5 years into the future.
Oh.
Look 5 years. Not only that, look 5 years into the past and think about, okay, what my life choices in these last 5 years have done what? And you're making faces over there. I hope you're thinking, man, he's bringing good stuff. But then looking and saying, 5 years from now, where do I want to be in these different areas of my life? And because I think we I think we greatly overestimate how much we can accomplish in the real short term, in 90 days, 6 months, even to a year. But I think we grossly underestimate what we can accomplish in a longer term, 3, 5, 10 year period. Let me restate that. Let's see. I want y'all's feedback on that. I think we grossly overestimate how much we can accomplish in that short term period. I think most people look and say, man, I'm going to lose blank amount of weight, or I'm going to grow my business by this amount, or I'm going to whatever it may be in 90 days or 6 months or even a year. I'd say a year and under short term. But in the same token, we grossly underestimate the change in what we can accomplish in a 3, 5, 10 year period. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm right. Either one of you.
I think you're right about the underestimating what we can accomplish in a longer amount of time with the proper amount of focus.
He said the word. It's the focus. Like, really, when you start talking about looking back 5 years, looking forward 5 years, I mean, that just...
So, I want to... You made a weird face.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know what you said.
When I did looking back 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Why did that hit you?
Oh, because I used to have a person in my life who always told me I should plan 5 years ahead. And just because I'm hard-headed and rebellious, I never wanted to do it. And as I've gotten older, I realized that he was right. I really should have done that. And I don't like doing it, but I really should be doing it. And I rarely plan far out, multiple years. Even though I should. And the older I've gotten and the more I've done with my coaching business, the more I see that I was completely wrong not to be planning 5 years out. But looking back 5 years and seeing where I was and, what I wanted to do and do I feel good about that or not? It just really made me, just when you asked that question, it made me really think. And I was like, oh, boy, Kevin, going deep today.
Well, when you think about 1 year and under, I don't necessarily think that much about dreams. When I think 3 to 5 years out, I'm thinking more about bigger dreams.
Okay, so dreams, not work.
Well, when I say dreams, I mean, okay, and it can be work. Okay, when I think about 5 years from now, where do I want this business to be? I have a whole lot easier time thinking bigger picture of what are the things that I really want to happen in this business, and what impacts do I want to make? What are things I want to do in this business? When I think about physical things, because I believe there's 4 areas: fitness, family, finances, and faith. You got to get those 4 areas right. If any of them get out of balance, your whole thing gets messed up. It's just my personal opinion. But when I think fitness, I think out 5 years, and I would love to be able to qualify to run the Boston Marathon. When I think about that for 1 year, that's one that I'm like, that's not going to happen. But could that happen in 5 years? Why not? I mean, potentially. But then you step back and say, well, in 5 years from now, this is what your qualifying time would be. This is what you currently run. What is that first step you need to take? See, I think when we look out 5 years, we're able to break this into manageable bites. And then our 1 year just becomes a step along the way to our bigger journey. I'll be quiet.
No, you make some really good points. And as you were talking about that, I'm thinking about, as soon as, it doesn't matter what you say to me, this is out 5 years. I'm like, okay, how am I going to make that happen? How do you make that happen? How to break it down? Oh boy, if you want to do that, then right now you better be doing this. My brain cannot comprehend too far out because like I get really wrapped up in the details. And I'm like, that is probably not good. Like I'm probably hindering myself because I don't want to think further out.
Well,
and whereas you're like, oh, this is awesome. Let me think about Boston. And as soon as you even say that, I'm thinking about, well, you better hit the track this week, Kevin.
yeah. Well, but I think where the magic happens is when you're able to combine those things. And I think they can absolutely be combined in you have this big thing out there. Where do I want to be in 5 years? You know, you think about with your kids. You know, where do I want to be in my relationship with them and their development and those things? Okay, well, that's a big thing, that big carrot out there we want to accomplish. Well, what needs to happen right now? And what needs to happen in that first year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then you determine what's going to happen in that first year. Well, what needs to happen in that first 90 days? And eventually, and you know what you get back to?
What?
The person that says in 5 years they need to lose 100 pounds. You know what you eventually get back to? You get back to that smallest bite of, you know what you need to do? You need to lose 1.
Yeah.
And
but
then,
that's where I'm like, my brain just goes like, and maybe it's because I'm always about planning things that I think on a smaller scale, like how am I going to make that happen? What do I need to do? What needs to happen? Who do I need to involve? Like, I mean, right away, that's how I think. So suddenly you just asking those questions makes me realize that, oh, my thought process is a little off. And I think, you know, and I'm so much about mental training in sport, but if you swing it back to mental training for life, and things like this, I realize, wow, I'm really missing the mark. You know, if I'm honest with myself.
Yeah, I mean, what's your plan? We talk about life plan. What's the plan for your life? Okay, I turned 50 this year, so from 50 to 55, where do I want when I'm 55? What do I want to be able to look back and say, okay, look back 5 years to this point in time, and so what am I trying to accomplish, and what is the first step to accomplishing that? So we've gone down a pretty deep rabbit hole.
Wow.
On
yeah.
that.
Ooh.
But it's so you know, you talked about, you know, habits and routines, not resolutions. In your opinion, what do you think a habit and a routine?
I have some
that?
strong feelings on this.
All right, let's hear them.
So I truly believe and behave in this way that a routine will then become a habit when you practice it. And a routine is something that you can really discipline yourself to do. And once you get used to it, it becomes that habit. But you know, it takes 21 days to create a habit. Did you know that?
I've heard that.
Yeah, and I believe it. But if you can do something for 21 days, then you're good.
So you say routine's the first thing.
Routine, yeah. Totally. For me.
Give me an example of this. What do you mean a routine?
Okay, so like from a routine standpoint, I have a routine how I take care of my dogs. Like every day I do the same thing. It doesn't always happen at the same time, but like when I go to feed, everybody gets put in their kennels first before I ever touch the food because I don't want them to get too excited and like fight with each other. So like I have this, I always do the same exact routine so everybody knows what to expect. So now it's kind of the habit. Like this is how you do it. But man, if you step out of line with that routine, like it messes them up. That's when we're going to have a problem or somebody's going to fight or I never know what to expect. Like don't get out of the routine. And so like for me, it's just like I can do it when I'm half asleep. It doesn't matter. Like, and the dogs know the routine. Everybody's good with it.
So you're saying you just have to discipline yourself to do the routine.
Yes.
And then that routine
It becomes habit.
becomes habit. So when something becomes habit,
Yes.
what happens? What's and I'm not saying physiological, but once it becomes a habit,
it becomes easy to do. You can always perform it. Like it's just part of your daily, it's part of your daily routine. It's what you do.
And I think most people probably don't realize how much they're doing that right now anyway in some areas of their life.
It's just that some of them, it's just that a lot of people get into routines that are not good. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so I always, and again, because I love the like nitty gritty details, like I look at my routine and I'm like, well, are there ways I can improve upon my routine? Is there a way I can do this better? Like, can I be more efficient? So like this year I moved the dog crates into the dog room because Peanut, my one little bad puppy, he was coming in the back of the dog room where I have all the food, and he would steal a dog dish, or he'd steal a blanket, or he'd steal things. So now I can put him in his kennel before he has a chance to steal things. And it's just like, so it's just a little tiny improvement to my routine. And now it's a habit. Now he knows he's got to go in his kennel. But it's like little things and little improvements to your routine that then become habit. Yeah. And this applies to anything. I'm just talking about the dogs because that's what I thought about.
Nick Saban, probably the greatest college football coach in the history of college football. Mm-hmm. Roll Tide, people would say. Some of you are out there saying, as soon as you say a name like that, people say, Roll Tide, Roll Tide. He says, I don't want my players to practice enough to where they always do it right. He said, I want them to practice the routine thing so many times, you may know the answer to this, that they can't do it wrong.
Oh,
interesting. So I want them to practice these routine things so much that, now again, are you ever going to get to that point where you can never do it wrong? But he talks about snap counts. He talks about different things of alignments and penalties and mental mistakes and those kind of things of we're going to practice these things to a point where they become so routine that it's almost impossible to do them wrong. Right. Because you've done them so many times, and that's where I think you would say becomes habitual.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Since you're talking about Saban and we're talking about habits, you know what Saban has for breakfast?
What?
The same thing.
2 Little Debbies and a Diet Dr. Pepper. And I don't know that that's still true, but a couple of years ago that was true because he doesn't have to think about it. That's what he's having for breakfast. Not what I want for breakfast, not what am I going to eat for breakfast. Hey, there's breakfast. And he grabs it and he's on about his day. Yeah. Every day.
I am like that in what I wear to work.
Really?
Now, you would think that somebody running a retail business has got, there's 20,000 square feet of clothes out there, but this time of year, you're generally going to find me in one of 2 pair of blue jeans, one of 2, either if I'm wearing cowboy boots, one of my boots, or one of my hiking boots. And generally and again, I have cold weather routine and I have warm weather routine. Warm weather routine, I've got on a pair of khaki shorts and one of my little gray Ariat Ventec shirts. It's got my Harrisons on it. And I've got 3 pair of them. So when I'm wearing the same one, I'm washing them.
I was going to ask him if he did laundry.
Yeah, we do laundry. But then whenever it comes to because when I go into my closet, I didn't even know this is what I was doing, but when you said that, right, when I go to the closet, I'm like, okay, there's the white button down that you're gonna wear, and you put it on, and right, you don't think about it.
You don't have to decide.
I like to wear what's on top. Yep, whatever's on top, kind of gets worn over and over again.
So more important than clothes is changing our lives.
Yeah, but changing how you think. I think if there's anything I'm taking away from what you just said, I was like, wow, I need to just sit down and be quiet for a minute and kind of think about, like, where was I 5 years ago? Where am I now? Where am I going? I mean, wow.
Not only where you were 5 years ago, but when you compare where you are now with where you were 5 years ago, then asking that question, why am I where I am right now?
Oh, well.
You think about that. Yeah. Where am I? Because you're going to look at some things and you're going to be like, you know what? I am killing it right here. Uh-huh. And why is that? And those things, you want to repeat those things. There's other areas you're going to look at and be like, you know what? I'm in the absolute tank right here.
But I think you really have to like stop yourself for a minute, like turn everything off, turn the phone off, sit down and like maybe like even with a pen and paper, I like to see things like I like to actually like write it. But just really, or when you're driving somewhere, you know, I get lost in thought, but those questions deserve answers.
They do. And pragmatically speaking, and without sounding like you need to do these things because you need to want to better yourself and you need to care about yourself and try to be the very best you can be in all areas. Hardly anybody does this. Hardly anybody takes the time to step back. Let me reevaluate 5 years ago, 1 year ago, what has led me to where I am now. Let me look at a year, 5 years from now. Where do I want to be then? And what's my what plan am I putting? What's my business? I would not look out in business. I would not look out and say, hey, what are we going to do? Well, we'll just open a store every year. We'll just open a new store every year, and that's just what we'll do. No, you set out a business plan.
Right.
Well, for your life, why do we not take the time to do that? And if
why? I know.
Well, because we think we don't have time for it. It's not a priority for us.
Okay.
Okay, what are you going to say? Because you don't agree with that.
No, I don't. I mean, like,
What do you think?
Well, personally, like, I just don't want to know the answers to the questions. Like, I mean, like, I do, but I don't. Like, I don't want to take the mental energy to think about it because I don't think I'm going to like the answers that I come up with. Like, if we're just being honest, like, I think I might look at those answers and really just, like, beat myself up.
Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes we need to beat ourselves up.
Yeah, yeah.
Not to make ourselves just feel bad, but to look and say, here's why I am where. If you'll do that, though, you will dominate in everything that you do. Now, that should not be just the reason you're doing it. But for people who...
Pretty good reason.
Yeah, for people who take the time to do that, you're going to develop a plan. And like I've done this with my children. Here's things that I want them. Here's things that I want my children. I'm not going to give them. Here's things that I want my children to say about me. 5 years from now, here's what I want them to say about me. I've even done a list of here's the things. It's going to sound morbid, but at my funeral, here are the things that I want. These are things that I want people in different areas to say about me. I read that. I didn't come up with that. Stephen Covey. I read that in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But in my funeral, it makes you step back and imagine yourself. And you're at a funeral, blah blah blah, and then you realize it's your funeral.
Is this the thing where you have to write your own obituary?
He doesn't ask you to do that, but what he says is just imagine. And he says, ask yourself this question. What would these people from different areas of your life, what would they say about you right now? And you think about people you do business with, people you're in the community with, your family, those that are closest to you. And it's an activity that helps you look and say, what do I want? Okay, what do I really want to be? What's the essence of what I really want to be? And that's in that longer term thinking in that. So I think if you'll do these things. So let's resolutions. Some of you are thinking, oh, well, shoot, now I can't do New Year's resolutions, and that's what I'd like to do.
I mean, you could do New Year's resolutions, but you could do this little, thing like, where was I 5 years ago? Where am I now? Why am I where I am now? And where do I want to be? I mean, if you just sat down and thought about those, I mean, forget about New Year's resolutions. How about like long-term goals?
All right, so long-term goals.
Yeah, how about that?
So let's give people. We're going a little bit off script here.
A little bit.
But that's where I live.
It's kind of what we do.
I live off script. But I think we've hit on something.
We're rolling with it.
So for people moving into January 1, I think look, we live in a thing where, we have a moon that goes around us, and we go around the big star. And then we call things seasons and months and everything else. Nothing more important about January 1st than any other day of the year. But it is a milestone marker of we're starting a new calendar year. I want to make some changes. I want to better my life. Step one. And I'm just putting you on the spot. Step one.
Oh, where was I 5 years ago?
Where was I 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. And then where do I want to be 5 years from now?
Sure.
Okay. Then what?
But where am I now?
Mm-hmm.
And why am I here?
Yep. You know, the only 2 points that you really need to know whenever you're trying to make changes or trying to get somewhere, you know, the only 2 points you really need to know are what?
Here and there.
Here and there. If you're getting on an airplane and you're going to Dallas, Texas, only thing you're concerned about is I'm getting on the plane, Greenville Spartanburg International Airport, and I am getting off the plane in Dallas, Texas. Okay, those are the 2 points in time. So if you know where you want to go and you know where you are right now, then what do you do?
Well, interesting note that I just got to back you up on there on the airplane. If you ever watch where they fly you when you're going somewhere, you never go straight there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
Hey, you don't think I don't know that? You think I'm not on airplanes and know that enough? So let me go back to that point.
It's just kind of like
we're going from Greenville, Spartanburg to Dallas. You know the very first thing we're doing?
going north.
No, we're going to Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
And why are we going to Atlanta, Georgia?
To pick up more people.
Pick up more people because that's the first stop along the journey.
Uh-huh.
You cannot get to Dallas without going to Atlanta.
Right.
Because that's where that's our next flight. So let's go back to it. We know where we are. We know where we want to go.
There are going to be some detours.
Well, there'll be some detours, but what's the very first thing we have to do?
Buy the ticket.
We got to buy the ticket. You got to take the first step.
Yeah.
Take the first step. So we talk about routines, habits, resolutions, which we're saying resolutions are not the things we want to hit at. So let's give people a framework. And we weren't even planning on doing this.
Okay.
But welcome to it.
We're going to buy the ticket, take the trip, eat the cake. Oh, no. Wait.
No. Well,
that's not what you said.
You can eat the cake, but so let's give people a general framework of here is what you should do if you really want to optimize your life starting in 2024.
Wow. Okay.
How do people go about, and I'm not talking about, we're not going to give people do this, do that. Here, you need to eat this. You need to try. No, how do you figure out where you are, where you've been, where you want to go? And then I think the magic comes down in that, okay, in year one, what are those steps we're going to take?
Well, I think once you have the goal, like where you want to go,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you do buy into it, you commit to it. And I think we talked a little bit about this last week or the week before about being extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got to commit to it. You probably have to let the people around you know what you're planning to do, because a lot of times it's going to impact everybody who's around you. If you have some new place that you're trying to go or thing
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to do, or if you're really kind of trying to change yourself a little bit. I mean, the people around you need to know what you're working towards. Some people are going to be super supportive and some people aren't.
There will be people
Who get in your way.
that get in your way, and there will be people that that actually, when they see you better in yourself, they will try to pull you down.
Right. So, I do think that you've got to have that buy-in, but you also have to kind of pay attention to any barriers to your success that might pop up. What else? I mean, like,
I don't think of those barriers, identifying them. You know what your barriers are.
yeah, but just like on a trip, sometimes you have delays.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you have delays. You still get there, but you've got delays. And I don't know. Have you ever seen that saying? I think it's from Lance Armstrong. He says, always forward, never straight. And I love that saying because I really do think it's important to always be moving forward, to be moving towards something. But it rarely looks like we plan it.
Yeah.
You know, like I can have a perfect plan, but oh, come on, life happens.
Where everyone's seen that meme. That's it's the line, picture a line going straight up at about a 45-degree angle. That's what everyone thinks success looks like.
Yes.
And then you got the next one that looks like an EKG. This is what success really looks like.
Yes.
And I think those are the things, but you've got to have, I think when you look back and we're hitting on it now, look back and you look forward into that 5-year period, you have that true north that is that place that you're trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how far off course you may get knocked by a headwind or a crosswind or whatever it may be, that plane is still making progress towards the goal that you have said is important to you. And I think that's where sometimes I think we get in trouble with these resolutions it's that 1 year deal. And we look at 1 year and there's so much progress you can make in 1 year. We think a year and you think that's a long time. But gosh, one of my kids was saying to me yesterday, I was like, Dad, I can't believe it's almost 2024. I'm just getting used to writing 2023. And I told her, I said, well, you just wait. I said, do you think it is now? I said, wait till you're 50 years old. I said, and they fly by. But that 1 year period, you can 1,000% make progress.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to fundamentally change everything about your life in 1 year.
No.
But what you can do is you can change the trajectory of your life.
Yes.
And if you change the trajectory of your life, you know what happens year after year? It compounds. And that compound interest starts to pay off in your life. And you look up 5 years from now, and when you do this exercise again, and you look like, holy cow, man, I am a completely different person now. And think about all the residual effects of that, positive effects that you've had on so many people because of you took the time to do that.
Wow. That was really deep.
It was. I'm grinning because I'm over here thinking about, I'm a Broadway freak, and I'm sitting here thinking about one of my favorite songs, and every time you talk about what can be accomplished in a year, I keep coming back to it. 525,600 minutes. That's it. That's what it is.
That's it. And you can make the most out of every one of those minutes.
Yep.
But at the same time, when we do New Year's resolutions, we create this time period that's from January 1 to December 31st. And we come out of the gate and we're just going as hard as we can because we've set all these big goals, big resolutions. And then we hit that failure point. And then we give up. And we kick the can down the road until the next year because we haven't looked out and said, you know what, if I blow it this year, it's like we talk about with training. When you're training. Any training events you've got is never just a point in time. It is a piece of a bigger journey. And once you miss that training day, you're never going to get it back.
Right.
You'll never get it back. Once this month is gone, once 6 months, once a year is gone, you're never going to get it back. Never.
It reminds me of the Michael Phelps was talking about how he never missed a swim workout for 5 years. Have you seen that? And he said because for every day you miss swimming, it takes 2 days to get it back. It kind of goes along with the compounding thing you were talking about. But for 5 years, he never missed a swim workout. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah. And he can remember also, interesting thing, he can remember the one time that his coach let him leave practice early. And it was for, I forgot what it was for. It was something really, you can look this up and it's like a dance or something. It was like a high school dance or something crazy like that. He can remember the one time he let him leave early, that he left practice early to do. But that's that dedication that you see. Man, we have gone completely away. But so habits and rituals. How can people? And I think we're going to have to come back in because this has been a really good conversation.
We're going to have to come back in January.
We're going to have to come back in I think expanding this 5-year deal
Yeah.
of going back 5 years, and then maybe putting some nuts and bolts to what's a good way to put this practice, to actually exercise this, where how do you sit down and look 5 years back?
I don't know, but I want to hurry up and finish up this podcast so I can go do it.
Yeah, no, but I think it would be valuable to come back and actually do that. And even if we were able to develop some kind of maybe here's a guide that you can go by, and
Sure.
then looking 5 years down, and then how do you break that into manageable goals of what's step one? I've done something like that with Bit, where we will look out and we break it down by the year, where this year, what's your big, goal that you're trying to hit this year? We'll now break that into 3 sub goals, and then out of those sub goals come action steps.
Right.
If this is something like that, so we're not going to be able to cover all that in this.
I think to start with, though, you have to don't get too complicated, don't go too deep, because anytime you're trying to do something like long term, you just got to kind of get it down on paper, get your thoughts out, and then you can break it down later. But don't make it too complicated to start with.
Well, and I think these routines we're talking about and habits it's what we talked about in the previous podcast.
Yes.
It's nothing. I mean, extraordinary people they're not super special people.
Oh, they are in their ability to perform.
Yeah. Well, what they are is they're masters at doing the ordinary things over and over and over again, and being disciplined in doing that. All extraordinary people they're extraordinary.
Yes, and all these things, though, are things that you can teach yourself and things that you can do if you commit to them. I don't think that there's no reason why everybody can't be a little bit better version of themselves next year, whether you're looking at just the year or 5-year plan. It's all about just kind of self-improvement and growth. And that's kind of what I think I said earlier on today is, it's about growing. We don't want to be here where we are right now at next year, looking at it going, well, I've done nothing with my life. We've all got to improve and move forward and do things that we're maybe a little bit scared of. I mean, for me, just thinking about the whole 5-year plan and looking back, I'm inspired from this podcast to just stop and do that when I go home, and I'm going to. Maybe I'll even share it.
Well, and we will come back to you with developing a 5-year plan for your life podcast. But to wrap this one up, these rituals and habits, how do people go about developing and again, all these things interact with each other. You got to know where you're going. But once people determine where they're going, how do they determine, okay, what are the rituals I need to put in place, the habits I need to form to be able to get me to my goals? I'm asking you.
Wow. How did they do that? I mean, honestly, I think you just have to write down step by step what you want to do, how you want to change it, what you want to what you want your routine to look like, right? I mean, from everything from, and I keep seeing this for people who have ADHD, but I think anybody can benefit from, in the morning, the first thing I'm going to do is get up, I'm going to drink a glass of water, I'm going to, brush my teeth, I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to get dressed, I'm going to put a load of laundry in, write down every single thing that you want to be part of your routine, so that way you do it every day.
Yeah. And then it becomes habitual, because a lot of those things you just mentioned are things that we do every day without even thinking about them. Like when I get out of the bed, stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
And I'm not consciously saying, hey, I need to go brush my teeth. Oh, I need to go get my water. I need to do whatever. I mean, it becomes habitual. And so, yeah, rituals and habits, not resolutions. And we're gonna come back with this 5-year plan. I think we hit on something there that could be something extremely, extremely valuable to a lot of people. So as you're looking at these resolutions that you were planning on doing, I want you to take a step back and instead of just looking at these, hey, I'd like to lose X amount of pounds, start looking back. Even before we come back to you, start looking back 5 years ago. How far have you progressed or digressed in 5 years? Where are you trying to go in 5 years? What's important to you? What do you want your loved ones to say about you? What do you want to be able to look in the mirror and say about yourself 5 years from now? And then let's start figuring out, what are those routines that you know you need to do? What are these habits that you need to form so that you can transform your life?
Wow. Thank you, Kevin.
It's a lot.
That is really heavy.
We did kind of go down a rabbit hole and get up with what we're, but man, I think
Thank you.
I think we've hit on something on this fight. I know that's something I need to take a look at again.
Kevin started on all this morning, talking about some of these things, and I knew, I was like, oh boy, he's in a mood.
I'm thinking.
He's deep thinking. But with that, thank you, Kevin, for your deep thoughts today. They were really awesome. And I'm going to wrap us up with your saying.
Our saying.
Oh, well, no, that's your saying. You came up with it, and you own it. You own it.
Own the saying.
You own the saying, but I'm going to say it. Do hard things today, or do the hard things today, so tomorrow will take care of itself.